The Lake Forest Podcast is supported by viewers, listeners, and businesses just like you. Looking for the best pool supplies? Look no further than Dohany's Pool Supplies. With a history dating back to 1967, this family-owned business offers everything families need to keep their pools clean and sparkling, from chemicals to equipment. Plus, customers enjoy free shipping on all orders. Visit Dohany's Pool Supplies today at doheny.com, DOHENY.com, to learn more. Forest Bluff Real Estate Team serves Illinois, Wisconsin, Lake Forest, and Lake Bluff. John Josephitis, Laura Lee Van Fleet, and of course Michelle Parnell. Get a free market analysis now at forestbluffrealestate.com. For the best cannabis in the world, look no further than Iliad Epic Grow. Owned by Lake Bluff's own Rich Ruzich, they are a cannabis cultivation center focusing on hard-to-find small batch products that will delight both the occasional user and ganjier. When visiting Michigan, ask for it by name. Epic Products, exceptional process. For more information, email info@iliadgrow.com. Havey Communications has been helping first responders arrive safely since 1983. It's owned by Lake Forest's own Mike Havey. Check them out at haveycommunications.com. Laracy & Company CPAs, founded in 2010 by Lake Forest's own Brian Laracy, specializes in tax preparation and bookkeeping services. Earning the People Love Us on Yelp award, their process is straightforward. Just upload, review, and file. For a free quote, visit LaracyCPA.com now. That's LARISEYCPA.com. We'd also like to say we're thankful for our Patreon supporters, Otto, John C., Helen, and Herrick.
Good morning, or good afternoon.
Still morning.
And it's still morning. 2 more we're recording.
Oh, look at you. Hit the flow bee, did you?
What? Windy outside, man.
Yeah. What's up, Joe Oberweiss?
Please. I didn't run for U.S. Senate 28 times.
Hey, but he makes a mean milkshake.
Hey, you should have stuck to that.
Pride of Aurora. So, Joe, good to see you. Missed you the other day.
To you, my apologies to you and Dr. Montgomery and Mr. Noble. I had the wrong time written in my calendar. That's my fault, not theirs. So I missed the interview, and I really, I think of all the interviews you've done, that was one I really wanted to be part of. So
you missed nothing. You got to watch it.
The hair is messed up because I've been kicking myself and pulling my hair ever since. But I watched the recording of it, and I got some questions.
Well, Pete the hypocrite here, I guess. When you come on the show and you talk to me, you know, I take in new information, I form new opinions. So, John Noble, like John Noble, okay? This version of Dr. Montgomery, okay?
Well, you know, let's separate the issues and the personalities. I think Dr. Montgomery comes to work every day trying to do the best job he can for Lake Forest. I really do.
Well, and himself, and his family.
Look, everybody gets paid in a job, Pete. So I mean, that's how it goes, right?
Yeah.
So I think he's working within a system that trying to do the best. I think there's some judgments that were made here, and I don't know if it's
judgments
or by their COO, who was not on our show but was on the other show, or if it's by their investment advisor. I'm not sure who. But look,
what are you addressing specifically?
Have a drink. I served on a school board for 8 years. Cheers.
Friday.
And you know, I saw a lot of this crap, and they were, you know, and I've heard a lot of good stuff from people in town about John Noble. He grew up here, and like most school board members, I think they get on there because they want to do what they think is right.
He's got a hell of a last name.
So is Noble, the street by the high school, named after his family? Maybe.
I don't know.
That was a question I had when I saw it. But But John, I think my advice as a former school board member to John and his fellow school board members is I think you're getting some bad advice. And I think you had an opportunity to get some better advice out there. We won't get into who gave it or whether you think you actually got it.
Because I believe I asked the question specifically on what you're bringing up. How could I have? What was the question that I asked, Joe, that you heard, and how could I have asked it differently to get a different answer?
Well, I mean, I don't remember the verbatim. You'd have to pull the transcript and maybe edit the show to show that if you're
with a fact check.
But you asked a good question, and that was I heard you got different advice about this, and they denied that. Okay.
The question was, Joe, was Dr. Montgomery and John Noble, were they presented with alternative financial models that would have a lesser impact to the taxpayer?
Correct. And they say no. And I don't want to get into what was said, what not said to them from other people, because we'll be here all day. And
why not? What else?
No, because it distracts from the bigger issue is that there is a better way you can do this. All right. Yes, the voters made a choice by a very narrow margin, 120 votes. Dr. Montgomery clarified that yesterday.
He's very objective on that.
Well, look, don't let small details get in the way of the important issue here. And that is that, the voters, by the narrowest of margin, made a decision to go with a bond sale because they felt very strongly that their high school needed these improvements. Okay, that's fair. All right. Now, there were ways to go ahead with all these improvements to sell those bonds now, because I've heard both on our podcast as well as the Snooze Fest podcast, the NPR podcast, that if they'd done this later, they wouldn't know the future of the bond market, and you don't know the construction prices, and yada yada. All fair points, but that's not the choice. They make this into a false choice of either we do this way, or we don't do it at all, or we do it in a way that costs a hell of a lot more money. And those are, again, false choice. There is a way you could have financed these bonds now, got all your cash now for the referendum you got approved, and had little to no impact on the tax rate, on the property tax rate. So when people get these bills later this month, they should know there was a way that we could have done this with less of an impact on your property taxes than what you're going to see. All right. Now, if you look at the city of Lake Forest and how they're financing the turf fields out there by Deer Path Middle School, yes, does it have an impact on the levy? Yes, not denying that. Is it a smaller project by scale than what the high school is looking to do? Yes.
Yes.
But if you look at the cost per financing that they're doing versus what the high school's doing, there clearly was a better way that the high school could have approached this and done it in a way that would have far less impact on the taxpayers and still gotten all the building improvements you wanted and gotten the revenue, the funds now, not waiting, not saying you have to prey on the uncertainty of future bond markets and future construction prices. You could have done this now at less of an impact. You also look at the investment advisory fees they're paying and compare that to what the city's paying in investment advisory fees. And like I said, they need to do a little better shopping on that, in my opinion. So I don't know where that advice comes from, if it comes from someone in the administration or someone that the school district hired, but it's very bad advice. And like I said, I think John Noble's trying to do the right thing, but I think he's getting bad things told to him either by staff or by contractors, and they need to question that a little better, in my opinion. I've seen this before on other boards over the years, that you don't want to micromanage, and I can appreciate that. You shouldn't be micromanaging every little thing the school district does, but you need to ask some questions, and you need to have some skepticism going into a process. And again, it is a false choice if you say, well, if we don't do this, the school's going to fall apart and this and that. You can do all this. You can do the improvements that you wanted. You got the green light to sell the bonds from the voters last April. but you could have done this in a way that it would have been less. So for to say, well, we kept our word on the amount
Can you be
promised we raised
objective
the
on what less
taxes,
is? Like,
you could have done it less.
Okay, how much less? About. Nobody's going to hold anybody anything. $100, 200 bucks.
I have heard different numbers.
Throw some out there.
I've heard it could be zero. You could do it if you really work this. You could have done this without any increase. And keep in mind, Pete.
Wait a minute.
What?
Why would they do that?
I think they're getting a bad advice. And I think, I don't want to get into the names of the investment firms and all that because they're going to sue us then. But I think these investment firms are. I don't want to say that they're robbing them, but I just think they're not. I think you know how you go to two or three different stores, Pete, and you see different prices, and you're like, oh my God, I can get the same thing 2 blocks away for a lot less money. I think that's what's happening here. They did not do due diligence in getting the proper financial advice on this, and it's unfortunate because I believe they have been told this by other people that know how to do this.
So the qualifier that I threw in when I asked the question was risk came into play, right? You can
right.
So what you're saying is same risk could it put it? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
I would love. Well, you know what? What kind of frustrates me, Joe, is now I love me some Elizabeth Holland.
Is it Holland?
Elizabeth H. Okay. I asked her, I said, I don't get any of this. Can you point me in the right direction? So, where I get sent to by Elizabeth H. is to
Lake Forest High School.
Hermes the scarf.
You know what, though, Pete, I will defend Elizabeth on that because, with all due respect, yes, I understand what you're trying to get, but that's not her place. That's not the city of Lake Forest staff to go and publicly second guess.
Second guess. Explain
another government agency. That's not their place. So I don't want to put them or anyone else in a bad spot on that. And they didn't want to put themselves in that. Look, they have a job to do running the city. I think they're doing a very good job. But again, that's big. You're looking at little details. I'm looking at the big picture, and that is the taxes. And a point I want to make is, in addition to this tax increase that they're doing just for this, they are also raising the other taxes, the maximum amount, which is 5% right now because of the tax cap law that we've talked about in the past that was signed in the 90s, that says you can't raise it by CPI or 5%, whichever is less. And CPI, which is inflation, consumer price index, is above 5%. Thanks, President Biden. But you cannot raise it more than 5%. So they're taxing to the max on the other areas. So you're not just going to get that increase that they talked about yesterday or that they promised during the campaign. All your other tax, your education fund, all the other funds that make up your property taxes. Because as I recall, I think there's like 7 funds. I mean, again, I'm a little rusty at this, 25 years gone. But there's other funds, the education fund, which is the biggest one. It's way bigger than buildings. That's basically paying for your staff. That's going up 5%. So your taxes are going to go up more than the amount they promised. Overall, yes, the bond itself will go up the amount they promised, but they could have done it for less. And, there's people I've talked to that understand this, that not only supported this referendum by voting yes, they actually had yard signs in their yard, vote yes yard signs, and they regret it now. They really regret it. So does it add up to 120? I don't know. But I think this could have been done differently. So my advice to the elected school board is the train's left the station. They've already sold the bonds. I think they've transmitted the tax rates to Holly Kim's office now, I believe, and the bills I think are getting printed. I don't know the exact timeline here in Lake County, but
they're coming out soon because there's a reason why those guys came on the show.
The train left the station. So I really think, I sat on a school board way back in 92 that, but here's my point. They made a very bad mistake. in a contract. They actually miscalculated salaries. You can go back and read the Tribune articles about it. And they miscalculated salaries to the tune of $1.2 million. They screwed up in the negotiations. They were trying to prevent a strike, which I get it. You don't
Wait,
want
was this like the I thought that was going to go easier? No wonder it went easy because like
well, yeah, I mean, this is like I said, I want to say this was like 1992, and they screwed up, and they did not properly calculate the salaries, and I won't get into all the minutia of why. But you know what they did? They did a mea culpa. They came to the community and admitted it. They put out a statement admitting it, and they said we regret it. Several of the board members chose not to run again, and they actually then worked on a plan to recoup those in the next contract.
Was this when Melanie Rummel was head of the school board?
This was in Niles Township, 219.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I know why that came up.
No. This was not here in Lake Forest. This was
okay.
back
that was another issue in Lake Forest.
At Niles, but 219, and I was just a young pup then on the board, and fortunately I was one of the two that voted no on the contract. So I'm like, hey, don't blame me. I voted no.
Oh,
but,
okay.
But the point is I think they need to get out there and say, look, we could have done this differently in a way, again, that I don't like how it's portrayed as, well, if we didn't do it this way, the schools would fall apart, or, oh, we'd end up paying more in the long run.
Joe,
no, you could have done this. You could have maintained your school building. You could have improved your school building. You could have done everything you're dreaming about in this rebuild, this contract with these contractors. You could have done it now. You could have gotten the money now, but you could have done it in a way. You could have financed it in a way that was differently. But unfortunately, somewhere along the line, you got bad advice.
This school board deal is, to me, that's kind of where I was pointing more at John than at Matt. It's like, it's like a football team, with the exception of this year and Bill Belichick. He's got a plug and play system. He knows the type of players that he wants. He puts them in and they perform.
Yeah, Tom Brady.
Yeah, well, Tom Brady.
Loses Tom Brady, it all falls apart, dude.
Well, man, Montgomery's Tom Brady, of course.
It's like when Michael Jordan retired.
Yeah, but you put this system in place where you're kicking the can down the road and eventually you got to pay it. And it just seems to me like, well, we're Lake Forest. We want low taxes, so we're not going to pay for anything. We're just going to push stuff off. Shouldn't the school board have a better system in place since you were on a school board? Like,
yeah, I mean, look, here's the deal. So most school board members tend to be PTA moms and dads who have kids in school, want the best for the school, and yes, and education is a shared responsibility of an entire community. I don't deny that. I don't say, oh, I don't
share nothing,
school, so it isn't my job. Yes, it is. But there are better ways you can do this. Look, I won't get on my soapbox today about school choice. You've heard me on that before. I'm a big fan of school choice. I think it's a crying shame that people like Julie Morrison and Bob Morgan and all of the people down in Springfield let the Invest in Kids Act die in veto session down there. That was the one time Bruce Rauner and Mike Madigan actually agreed on anything in the 4 years that Rauner was governor was the Invest in Kids Act, and the Cardinal, the Archbishop of Chicago, was behind.
Hey, Lewis.
They let this thing die because they're more interested in catering to the Chicago Teachers Union, which is writing all the checks now for everybody that got the mayor of Chicago elected. But school choice is something that I think both on the state level and on the national level, we need to have a bigger conversation about. That said, here in Lake Forest, we do have a pretty good school system. There's no question that I think even if you had a full school choice program in place, a lot of people would choose Lake Forest High School still.
Did you hear that?
Fair enough.
Did you hear the question that I asked? What's the capacity of Lake Forest High School?
I'm surprised. I was interested in that answer when I watched that, because I thought they were going to go down the route of, well, we used to fit more in the building, but with the way we teach now, we need smaller classes, because I used to hear that too. Because back in the day, they had 50, 60 kids in a class, and it was just a teacher standing at a board and writing on a lecture board and stuff like, kind of like if you ever watched Paper Chase back in the day and all that. No. So education has changed, of course. So smaller class size is ideal. And so I was just curious about that. Pete, I don't think this community is going to go for bringing kids from North Chicago and Waukegan into Lake Forest High School.
Hypocrites.
That one right now.
Lake Forest hypocrites.
But let me tell you this. Guilty. Here's what should be done. Here's what should be. Well, first of all, the Invest in Kids Act would really help a lot of kids in North Chicago and Waukegan. It should, not only should it have been renewed, it should have been expanded. But in any event, because it was basically a school choice program. But here's a thing, and I wish we could have touched on it yesterday when on the show with them, and my bad for missing it.
Yeah, if you were there.
But we've talked about this before. 1 out of every 10 school districts in the United States is in the state of Illinois. That's crazy. All right. And yes, that's nice that they have the shared services thing with 67 in the high school. But the fact of the matter is that we, not just here in Lake Forest, but all over the place, spend too much on administration with all these different districts, whereas other states don't do that. Okay. I'm not saying we should be CPS with hundreds of schools and an unmanageable bureaucracy. But there's no reason to have administrative office here in Lake Forest, an administrative office in Deerfield, an administrative office in every little town that has its own district. There's no reason to do that. You can have the same schools, the same boundaries even. I'm not saying we have kids from Lake Forest go to North Chicago or vice versa, but you could have one administration manage that, okay? You don't need a superintendent, an assistant superintendent, a business manager, all the positions they fill for these 1 and 2 school districts, all right? That's an area that I think needs to be looked at, but every time anybody's tried it, because in fairness, governors from both parties have tried to address this over the years, and the public education monopoly fights back big time on it. They're like, "How dare you?" And and they'll say, that's gonna end up busing kids 28 miles from their house and yada yada yada. No, you can. There needs to be consolidation of these districts, not the schools. Not saying close schools. All right. But of these districts, we spend too much in this state on administration. All right. Now, doing that's going to put some people out of a job. I admit that. All right. And I feel bad for that. No one wants to lose their job if they're doing a good job. But it should never have been this way. All right. I don't know how it was created under this system. I've heard different stories going back 100 years when travel was harder and whatever. But the point is, we as a state need to talk about, there's no reason Illinois should have 1 out of every 10 school districts in the United States. That's crap. That's total waste of money.
Well, it is what it is. And we had those 2 guys on the show. Look, I asked questions and they answered them. Okay, you didn't like the financing one. I didn't get it. If I had a finance person on to explain to me like who chooses the right financial company to work with, I have no idea. All I know is that bill's going to hit soon and I'm out $1,000. I could do it $1,000, a lot of things.
And you know what I found out last night? On top of that, Lake County. So the Lake County government, the folks up in Waukegan, Sandy Hart and those county board members that we have, they're doubling the property tax rate for Lake County from, I think, actually more than doubling. I think it was like 2.4% going to 5%.
Jesus.
So that's so cha-ching. And it's death by 1,000 paper cuts. This is why Illinois is got the highest outbound migration rate, because we pay the highest per capita in state and local taxes in the country. So clearly something needs to be fixed. This is a global picture. But why is it for years when the Republicans ran Lake County that they kept the property tax rate pretty low, and now that the Democrats run Lake County, they're doubling the property tax rate? So just
I don't know.
Well, but
So
you do know that you're going to have to pay for
I'm
it.
paying. I don't know why I'm
bud.
paying. I have no idea. I
Think
don't
about that when you
understand.
vote next.
So I must be like an
county
average
board. Maybe
voter.
let's bring back Mike Rummel to the county board, because Mike was a Republican on the county board. I think
Grow up, Pete.
I think he would have done a better job with their finances than the guy that replaced him. But I met the gentleman that's going to run against the guy that replaced him, and he's going to come on our show at some point once he gets on the ballot and everything. So I'll let that happen.
So getting back to Noble and Montgomery. All right. Again, I asked the questions. They answered the questions. I don't have a beef with them other than my tax bill, and we have to work on that. But we asked about what the perfect timing. That email comes out from Montgomery about 67.
I'm gonna say I agree with how the district handled that.
They didn't have a choice.
Yeah, I mean, look, my very last meeting on the school board, they went into executive session about an employee who he was a dean at one of the high schools, and he was having inappropriate relationships with a female student. Actually, I guess they had a picture of him at a Cubs game with her and stuff. And I'm like,
should have went to the Sox. It would have been common practice.
And people really would have been worried. But no, no, I shouldn't joke about this. This was very serious. But and I said, look, guys, I almost didn't want to resign because I was becoming a village trustee the next week, so I had to resign. I almost didn't want to resign because I was like, you guys got to fire this guy. I mean, this is outrageous, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And the case played out over the years, and they ended up having to settle because the guy hired a really good lawyer, and they settled and basically agreed that he would resign and nothing would be in his file. So fast forward about 5 years ago, I'm reading the Chicago newspaper one day, and I see that the Chicago Public Schools, the superintendent, the CEO or the CEO, whatever they call it, they don't call it a superintendent, they're the CEO, is getting indicted. And one of the other people getting indicted for fraud is like some guy that worked with her, and his name was Gary Solomon. And this was the same guy that was the dean that should have been fired at Niles Township back in 1999. But because they had settled this thing out of court, or because this, and in fairness, the school district in Niles, this guy had a family member that was an attorney, so he was basically doing the work for free, was my understanding. So the school district was having to pay all these legal fees. So at some point, you got to fish or cut bait here. So they just said, okay, we'll settle this and move on. I'm glad that John Noble talked about a law that's coming into play. It sounds like it's a done deal, hopefully, from what he said. I'm glad about that, because that really stuck in my craw, that people in education could find their way to another school district later on, despite this really bad behavior.
So that's not, people are going to beef about that. I'm laying off because they addressed it. They could have, passed it on and they addressed it.
Yeah, I think based on what I've heard, I think Dr. Montgomery and the administration did the right thing there. I mean, now maybe if someone has some information that contradicts it, like they sat on it for 2 years or something. I mean, the guy does have to get due process, right? Yeah. But, as soon as you know that this guy did this in another district, you get him out, all right? And unfortunately, sometimes they have to pay, they have to put him on suspension and pay him for staying home, which sucks to the taxpayers.
Well, I mean, that's 60.
Get him away from the kids. He should not be near.
Right.
So you cross a line like that, you should never be in a position involving education again, anywhere in this country.
That's dealing with 67 right now, and then 115. That's something that happened in the 80s. That's nothing. So those are two. I mean, they're serious.
Nothing. I mean, it's very serious.
It's serious things, but to the people right now, you can't. It's nothing that I'm going to say, "Hey, man, you guys screwed up." I'm going to go back 20 years to. Was Melanie Rummel the head of the school board back then?
Yeah, I'd have to go look. I don't know.
I'm sure we got fact checkers, but I think she was.
Of service.
I'm sure I'll get an email. I'm sick of
I'm not going to
you.
insinuate that she would
Wait,
condone
hold on.
that behavior,
I didn't
but
do that right. I'm sick of you. That was it.
so I mean, but like I said, every school board member is horrified. Trust me. When I sat in on that executive session that I mentioned a minute ago, every one of my colleagues was horrified at what they heard. Okay, so there was nothing like, oh, well, this is no big deal. No, everyone thought it was a big deal. All right.
Yeah.
But you had a system that you couldn't do the right thing. So I'm glad to hear that they're doing these reforms. So when somebody does something this horrendous, not only are they removed from this district, they're kept from doing that in another school district. I hope it somehow becomes years ago, I worked in retail, like a lot of kids, and I learned that, there's a retail theft database that all the retailers keep. And
like Vegas.
if you steal at let's say you work at Target and you get busted for stealing, it goes into a database. So if you go try and apply at Walmart, they're not going to hire you. All right. Because all the retail association or whatever it's called has a database. Maybe there needs to be some effort like this with the U.S. Department of Education or the School Board Association, something, because what's to keep this guy now from going to Wisconsin and getting a job at a school in Wisconsin, or somebody doing this in Wisconsin and getting a job here in Illinois? I don't know I don't know the specifics, but I kudos to John Noble for what he worked on with the legislature with that, and kudos to Dr. Montgomery on handling the situation. From what it sounds like, he did the appropriate thing.
So I think we're a give it, take it show. It's like, all right, you don't come on the show for a while, you get a lot of crap, and then, we clean it up. But now back to the crap side of things, with Noble, did you buy that reason why he gave Montgomery the raise?
No.
Did I gently push back? All right.
As someone that has to, in my current job, has to manage over 80 people, I can appreciate continuity. All right. I mean, when I got two really good employees that are retiring at the end of the year that are going to leave a big hole in my organization. Right. And it's going to be a pain. It's a pain to replace them. Okay. And then get them onboarded. So I can appreciate that. At the same time, though, you have to build organizations, because what if, God forbid, somebody gets hit by a bus or something? I don't want anybody to get hit by a bus, please. But I'm just saying, you have to build. None of us live forever. Things happen. So you have to have an organization with continuity plans in place if anyone leaves for whatever reason in an instant. That said, I've never been a big fan of this whole bidding against other school districts for superintendents. Okay. When we hired our superintendent back in the Stone Ages, I voted against the contract, against the hiring, not because I was against the person we were hiring, but I was against how the contract was structured, because it had long-term deals, it had severance pay if they were let go and all this. And it turns out they ended up being let go, and then we had to pay them severance pay, which was, I thought, total waste of tax dollars. I wish, again, the public school system create the inherent nature of the public school system is such that you have Lake Forest High School competing with all these other districts for top talent. Okay. So if they truly believe Dr. Montgomery is doing a great job, I'll take them at their word, okay, because they work with him a lot closer than I do. But that said, I just have a problem with anyone. I don't care if it's the second coming of Moses.
He scored high in empathy.
I don't care who it is. I don't care if you hired Michael Jordan, all right, to coach the basketball team. But I don't like these long-term. I think everyone should. I wish everyone in public education were at-will employees. I think and there's some very good people in public education, and if the opportunity is offered to them, they certainly should take advantage of it. But the whole tenure thing, I have a problem with that. I was so glad back in the 90s, Governor Edgar signed a bill increasing the number of years before a teacher could get tenure. I think at that time it was 2, now it's 4. So that was a step in the right direction. I just have a philosophical problem with giving tenure to people in that are on the public payroll.
Well,
I think if you're on the public payroll, you should actually be held to a higher standard than people in the private sector. And
you heard my analogy.
We're in a world where it's the exact opposite.
The analogy I used was, treating school like a business, and maybe I was wrong for doing that. But
how do private schools run? How does Lake Forest Academy or Loyola Academy, or take your list of all your other private schools in the area? How are they run? And again, that's why I'm on the school choice. When I started on the school board, I was against vouchers or school choice. I hate to use the word vouchers because that's a negative connotation. I was against school choice. By the time I was done with my 8 years on the board, I was the biggest school choice supporter ever.
What's the downside to vouchers?
The downside is the concern that a lot of people have is that kids with special needs will get overlooked. That all the schools will compete to get the really good kids and the real mainstream kids, or whatever the term is now in education, and that less performing kids and children with special needs,
like me,
no school would want those because it costs more to educate them than all the genius kids, right? So, and look, the special kids with special needs, that is something we need to take care of, and I worked very closely with our special ed programs when I was on the board, and we had a very good special ed program with the joining school districts. My view is, and you could go talk to former Florida Governor Jeb Bush, who instituted a really good school choice program in Florida. It actually freed up resources so that they could spend more on special education, not less. So that's one of the downsides. I think people are saying, well, you shouldn't use tax dollars to schools that have a religious point of view. Like you shouldn't, you know what I mean? But we do that now at the college level. You can get a scholarship to go. You can get a federal scholarship to go to Notre Dame University or Loyola University or DePaul University or Liberty University. I mean, that system is in place now. So at the college level. So why is it we allow federal money, federal vouchers, essentially? I hate that word vouchers, but why is it we allow it for college, but we don't allow it for K through 12? And I think
there's a fraction of kids in North Chicago. Let's just say all the AP people, North Chicago, Waukegan, whatever it is, they can come to Lake Forest. And I know people are cringing, but look, come on, you guilty Lake Foresters out there that,
school. There's no hotter topic than school boundaries. Trust me, I dealt with that back when I had a 2-school district, and we wanted to tweak the Niles North, Niles West boundary a little bit. And whoa,
Joe, we got a small business here. We got a restaurant that needs more customers. Okay. And we have a menu that's 30 pages.
I disagree. Long. I think you need less. School choice will reduce the cost of education and therefore your taxes. If let's say we instituted a school choice program where here's the idea I've always thought of is, okay, the years that you as a parent have a child enrolled in a private high school, okay, because we have separate districts for K through 8 and then high school. So the four years that your child is enrolled in a private high school, the portion of your property taxes to the high school district, the public high school district, are 0. Okay. So, and the second your little Johnny or Janie graduates from the private high school, you go back to paying the taxes again to the public high school. And you're like, oh my God, you're going to take money away from the public high school. No, you're not. You're actually going to save them money. Okay. And if you look at the cost per pupil of educating kids versus the average tax rate in the community, it is higher. So it's to the school's benefit to have less kids, not more, Pete, because then you need less employees.
Well,
All
Lake
right.
Forest has 1,400 enrollment, and they have a lot of employees. And
Well, how many of them could be if you consolidated school districts and had less administration? How
yeah,
many would you need? But
and a lot of look. I'm pointing fingers now at the system, not at the people like Matt Montgomery and Noble. Noble more than Matt Montgomery. Matt Montgomery, he's a player and he's getting paid. God
he's got
bless
a job to
him.
do. He's doing what his job
Yeah,
is
he's
in the
getting paid.
system he has.
Right,
Right.
right. So
Don't
so
don't play. What's the phrase? Don't hate the player, hate the
hate the
game.
game. Hate
Yeah.
the
Well,
game.
the game sucks, man.
Yeah, I get it.
Players
So
are good,
okay.
but the game sucks.
So what I don't understand about the game is these kids are scraping. Well, first of all, if they go to class, that was something I didn't know. They're not going to class. So you got 1,400. It's not 1,400. Take that percentage, 17 days out of the year. Well, that's more than half a month, whatever it is. That's not 1,400. That's, 1,200, whatever the number is. So, and the solution is that to make classes more interesting. So the teachers need to step up their game.
Well, I mean,
But my point is,
kids can be
why are
sick.
there no
Good. I mean,
objective?
you want a kid with the flu coming to school and getting everybody else in the building sick?
No, what I want is you hold the kids accountable to grades, you hold them accountable to a test to get into a school. Why is it that we can't hold the teachers accountable to some type of objective metric other than empathy?
I agree. I agree. I think, look, the debate over is ACT or and the PSAT. I heard that so much over the years, and hell if I know what's the right test and all that. But the fact of the matter is that every other line of work pretty much has some metrics, some accountability, some performance measures. Okay. And like I said, what do private schools do? How do private schools decide whether we're going to keep you? How does Loyola Academy or Lake Forest Academy, how do they, or Christian Heritage Academy in Northfield, which is a very good school, how do they decide this person's doing a good job or we need to make a change here? And and the other part of it is also, I think, one of my experiences on the board, as well as went back way back when I was a student, the newer teachers were the better ones. And then you had the older ones that were just kind of mailing it in at that point. I mean, I had a teacher when I was in high school who pretty much said to us, "Hey, I got a year left, 2 years left till I retire, and I just don't care anymore."
Mailing it in, yeah.
He basically told that to the class.
So, but Joe, what I hear is teaching to the test. All right, I think even Matt brought that up. We don't want to just teach to the test, but that's what life is. You want to be a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant. You got to study for the test to prove that you have proficiency in the knowledge to do it. So why can't we hold? Oh God, people get so pissed. Why can't you proficiency out of more classes so you can take other things? Why waste the taxpayers' money when education is no longer centralized? Joe, are you still there?
You froze there on my internet.
Okay, you froze.
We both froze.
Okay, we both froze. Again, teaching to the test, people are going to cringe. Why is it okay if you're going to be a doctor, an accountant, a lawyer, you have to take this test to prove that you have proficiency? Yeah. Why can't kids do that to stop taking these classes? That would reduce headcount or get them to take, other classes.
Okay, so I'll be the first to admit that if not every kid has the same career path, right? One kid's going to look at your classmates and where they are now. Some became doctors, some became lawyers, some became in the trades, right? And the trades can be a very good career for a lot of people and pay very good.
Because they took Irish history at Notre Dame and can't get a job, and they go into customer service.
Look, everybody. But that entails, maybe that's why, again, school choice would be a good thing in this country, because then if your son is going to go on the trades route, he can go to a school that's more geared towards trades. And if your son's going to be or daughter's going to be a doctor, they can go to go on a different career path in school. So again, that's where school choice, I think, is the one size fits all doesn't work. So I can see where they say, look, these tests don't necessarily mean we're properly educating them, but
Yeah, they do.
I can't think of any other, once somebody gets tenure here, unless they do something as horrendous as this guy at Deer Path did, they can't get fired.
Why did tenure happen in schools? Like, why can't I get tenure?
Well,
I had to bust
I
my
heard,
ass for
okay,
20 years at a company.
the argument that I was told back, well, in regards to tenure, the argument I heard against tenure over the years was that school districts were censoring people. Like and there was not a freedom of speech.
Like you're doing now? Woke.
Well, good point. So look, but at the same time, like I said, I had a teacher back in the 80s who basically told his class, look, I've got like 2 years left. I don't really care. He said, do whatever you want in my class, just don't get hurt so I don't have to fill out paperwork. I mean, that's what he said.
So, Joe,
that's an extreme. That's an extreme. And there, like I said, there are some very good teachers at all different ends of, there's teachers that have been teaching 20 years that are great. There are teachers that are just out of school that are great. But again, why is it that we have a system that lets that guy, people like that guy, keep working? He clearly didn't want to do his job anymore. Maybe he won. I think he won a bunch of awards, like in the 60s. But by 1986, he was like mailing it in. He didn't care anymore. So
you got a union and you got nothing. There's no paper in the union. There's no like objective way for differentiation. So look, why are we talking about all this? Because look, we've been bitching and moaning at Montgomery and Noble for what's been going on, and they're dealing with this bad hand. Now they could have got a couple aces with fixing the financial side of things, which I still don't get, and we'll address that. I'm sure we'll get a few people that'll address it. And if there's any teachers that haven't unsubscribed yet and they want to come on and pitch their case on this, feel free.
Teachers, again, don't hate the player, hate the game, right? I think most of these people, as far as I can tell, they come to work every day trying to do what's right. Okay. And they want, and I think when they have that first cup of coffee in the morning, they're like, what can I do today to teach the students in my class and make this, and do a good job and further these kids along in their lives. So I appreciate that. And like I said, I think in a school choice environment, people like that would be rewarded even better than they are now.
So Matt Montgomery, John Noble, I got no beef, which I'm kind of
like I said, it's the system. I do wish that they would again, I'm assuming it's too late to change how you finance this. Maybe there's a way you can pull it back. I don't know.
Interest rates are going
maybe
down.
Redo it and then do a rebate next year or do a tax cut next year. Shocking tax cut idea. Woo. But I don't know. I mean, the problem is the train's left the station, it sounds like, on that. But like I said, look, in 1992, my board, they did a mea culpa to the community, admitted they screwed up, and worked to rectify it in the following years after.
All right. Anything else from that meeting? I mean, it was good. It was good to have that dialogue, and it's nice to hash it out like a public house. You sit around.
No, look, I will do this. People said Dr. Montgomery was never ever going to come on your show again. All right, and I kept saying,
I said I didn't want him.
How many times did we say?
I said.
But how many times? I said, let's have the door open. I kept the door open just a little crack for you.
Yeah, but see,
and he finally did it.
Okay,
now I get it. He did it for a reason, and that's fair. Look, everybody comes on this show for a reason, right?
Yeah.
Mayor Tack came on the show because he was running for mayor, right?
Hey, Randy, where are you, buddy?
He'll be back. Don't worry. That's fair. Look, we all do things for a reason, right? I get up in the morning to make money to feed my kids, right? I mean, it is
Absolutely.
what it is.
That's a lot of scratch offs. Now, speaking of mayors, Joe, I heard that somebody said something incorrectly on the show
Yes.
regarding a past mayor.
So we talk about mea culpa and admitting when you made a mistake. I, Joe Weiss, made a mistake last week on the show. As Pete said, I got it wrong. So we were talking and about all the caucus stuff and everything, and the railroad issue came up. And I said that when former Mayor Pandaleon had been on our show a few months back, that he called the position on this train issue by Prue and those people out there demagoguery. And Mayor
What the hell does that
Pandaleon
mean?
demagoguery. I googled it for you. I did the googling.
Who would get pissed at that? Come on,
Demagoguery
George.
is basically making false claims in order to advance your political cause. All right, and we've certainly seen a lot of politicians do that over the years.
Come on, George.
But I went back and I looked because I swore I heard it. Okay, but I'm going to be 55 in a couple months, so which makes me eligible for the senior discount at Denny's. But I swore I heard it, but I went back and read the whole transcript and watched the whole podcast, even with Mayor George that we did. Not only did he not say that, he didn't even talk about the train issue with us on the show. So I totally blew it. All right. So I hold Mayor George Pandaleon in the highest respect.
Of course,
we came on this show,
George, but come on,
when I
George.
first moved here, he was the first person I met in Lake Forest government because I met him. He came to a newcomer's reception, and I started chatting with him and stuff. And that was so. The last thing I want to do is say something that he said that he did not say. So he never said it. I think suffice to say he supports how the city handled the issue when he was the mayor, and he was on the council before that. But he never called it demagoguery. Now let me say this: I'm going to call it demagoguery. So from now on, the word demagoguery on the train issue in the last mayoral election, attribute that quote to me, because I do think it was demagoguery on the part of Ms. Beidler and the people, a lot of those transparency people.
Hey, hold on, Joe. Hey, Prue, I know you're not watching or listening, but I'm just kind of curious. What did you order for lunch with Hilary?
Did she really get together with Hilary?
Yeah. What'd you have? And who paid? Oh, you know who paid? Prue did. You know how expensive those lunches are?
I don't know.
Oh, they're up.
I wouldn't know.
You can have lunch with anybody if you whip out that checkbook.
No one's more responsible for Donald Trump being president than Hillary Clinton.
But anywho, demagogue. Hey, George, I'm sorry somebody
decided to campaign in Michigan instead of California. But all right, in any event, that's great.
George, we apologize for.
I apologize to George. And like I said, though, I believe the train issue was demagoguery. That the city did the right thing in that whole thing, and you move next to a train, deal with it. Okay, you get a nice house in Lake Forest at a far less cost than the rest of the city because you're next to a railroad track. It is what it is, okay? If you don't like it, spend more money on a house that's not by a railroad track or live in a different community. I'm sorry. Someone else will buy the house because they appreciate it. Look, I hear the trains here out in Middle Fork, not to the extent that the people do out by the academy, but I hear them here. I get up. I've woken up at 2, 3 in the morning. And I can hear the freight trains, but
Come on, George. We were really ruining.
We love George. We love George. So
love George, but come on.
My apology, Mayor Pandaleon. You never said it, and
you know what? We're going to say more things wrong. You know,
we admit it. We do these mea culpas, and I think if people did more of that, we'd be in a better place, right?
Yeah, we move on from things. You know, mea culpa. I didn't bring it up because I got caught into talking about changing
You were
school.
too busy. Like you were so excited to see him. That, oh my
Like,
God.
wow. It's like, where's Melissa Oakley? I thought she was back
Oh,
there.
let her out of this. Come on, man.
She's back there behind the scenes doing hand signals, but he said it was.
Stop.
I didn't ask about the Lake Forest High school mascot. That's going to be the next issue. You watch. They're phasing that sucker out. Have you noticed that? You can't find anything with this.
Again, Niles West back in the day was the Indians. And
so was Lane Tech.
And my seat on the school board wasn't even cold yet from when I left to go to the village board. And they changed it they dropped it, and then it later became the Wolves. Because they knew that I was going to make a big stink about it, because I was asked about it in like one of those candidate forums, like the League of Women Voters candidate forums, and everybody else gave Lane.
Yeah, no, it's staying the way it is.
And I said, is political correctness gone awry? I said, and look, I said, this is one of the most diverse communities in the country. To say we're anti Native American or whatever because we have the name Indian is nonsense. It was, but Scouts. I mean, Scouts can mean so many things. Should the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts change their name now too? I mean, come on, this is insanity.
They're doing it right
maybe
now.
The only one that ever made sense to me that maybe should have been changed was the Washington Redskins. I mean, that was a little over the top.
And they're going to change it back to the Redskins.
but I mean, the Cleveland Indians, come on, the Cleveland Guardians now, or whatever they are. And I mean, some of this is just
the pendulum is switching back over, but still, all this stuff is going on. They're going to, what's going to happen? Montgomery's going to change that logo, and he's going to skedaddle and get paid somewhere.
You think
else.
they'll do what the Illini did? Because here's what Illini are still called the Illini, at least for now. Now there's some people that want to drop that, but they don't use the Chief Illini whack and all that. It's just that plain lame letter I.
Yeah.
Is that what? So we're just going to see an
LF. Yeah.
But they'll still be called the Scouts, but just no more.
No, I think Scouts is going.
Are they going to be a different name?
Scouts a reference to an Indian, man.
That's okay.
Well, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts.
Let's see how that. You know what? Here, let's
put a cookie on the side of the head.
Let's put that as a referendum on the ballot. Let's have a referendum on that. See how that.
People would vote for that. They won't vote for $1,000 tax increase.
Would overwhelmingly vote to keep the Scouts as the team name. I just call me nuts. I'm sure it won't be unanimous, but I said that, Pete. I said that in 1995 about the Niles West Indians. I said, let's have a vote on it with the community, because I think the community overwhelmingly supports keeping the name, and I think the same thing here.
Are you saying that we should put up a poll?
No, I think there should be a vote. I put it as you do a referendum on a bond sale.
We're going to do like Forrest podcast.
Ohio just had a referendum on abortion and marijuana. Let's do a referendum on this.
Okay, I can't control that. What I can't control is a poll on the email we send out if the teachers don't all unsubscribe. All right, so next on the list, Joe. Next week.
Look at you. You look like Puxatawny, the guy in Pennsylvania for Groundhog Day. Puxatawny Phil or whatever.
Next week is Thanksgiving, isn't it?
Yeah.
What's the day after Thanksgiving?
Black Friday.
Tree lighting.
Tree lighting here in Lake Forest, yes, which is way more fun than standing in lines at a store for Black Friday. So yeah, we had Rick Amos and Joe Oriti on a couple weeks ago to talk about it.
The link
if you
will be
haven't
right
watched
here.
that podcast, go back and watch it. It's really good stuff. This is a fun event. I missed it last year because we were out of town for Thanksgiving weekend, but I will be there this year. So I'm really looking forward to this. I've watched the videos of past events. This will be Mayor Tack's first time lighting the tree.
You know what? You know the difference between this year and last year with having Randy Tack here versus George? It won't be a 10 count. It'll be like a 3 count.
I don't want to get out of there. he's all business, man. He's no nonsense.
Three, two, one. All right, gotta go.
Wife's got dinner on, so.
But so Thanksgiving, the Weisses all be in town. This is the first.
Yeah, my big guy's coming
back
home this weekend from college. Actually, bringing one of his buddies who's with him to because they long story short, he can't stay with his family, so we're like, hey, come stay with us. So we're really looking forward to that. We're gonna have the nice little meal, and I'll eat the turkey. I won't eat the stuffing and all that other carb loaded stuff. So I stay nice and svelte here.
Absolutely. Thank you for the dietary advice. You know what an optimist is, Joe? Dude that starts a diet on Thanksgiving.
I started it in June, and I've lost
like fantastic
26 pounds, I think it was.
You look
Debbie lost the
Debbie looks fantastic. Her second husband's gonna love it. So what do you have for so what's on the Thanksgiving table?
I think it's one of those it's the turkey. I mean, my wife and her family are very, very traditional oriented. So turkey, cranberry stuffing, the what you think a Thanksgiving meal would be. So, like I said, I went through the list the other night, and it was the turkey and the green beans is what I'll be eating that night. All the other stuff, I'll let my son do the eating on all that.
So I get 5 gallons of the finest Walmart peanut oil.
Oh, you do the fryer thing?
Oh, deep fry it. Yeah, cook it.
Oh man, should we pre-warn the Lake Forest Fire Department just in case?
I'm a veteran of it, but I welcome those guys coming by anytime if they want to have a bit of bird. But cooking a full 20-pound turkey in 50 minutes, that's how you do it.
I had the fried turkey from a coworker a few years ago. He brought it was the leftovers, so I got it like a couple days later. So I heated it up in the microwave, which I know is not the same, but it was still really delicious. It's a very different flavor than the regular turkey I think most of us are used to.
So I mean, maybe
I'll head over to your house. Bring my son.
Come on over. You know where we're at.
Yeah.
Then on Friday, we say, hey Pete, what do you do with all that leftover oil? Well, we have Fry Fest. What does that mean? You dump the bowels of your freezer and you bring anything that can be fried.
At the Illinois, I don't know if you've ever been to the Illinois State Fair.
Yeah, of course.
They have a stand there. It's called Fried What? And they fry like Oreo cookies, and they fry like strawberries and bananas, and oh my God, no wonder everybody's so overweight in this country.
It's so hey, stay away. But here's some of the
they have bacon lemonade. They had bacon lemonade too.
How could you not with the Bloody Mary?
That's total Springfield for you. Even the lemonade has pork.
Well, the elephant ears. What, elephant ears? Is that what those things are? No, the big winners are the Uncrustables, deep fried Uncrustables with the peanut butter and jelly inside. Absolutely fantastic. Then you have again the Oreos. That's like child's play. But the fun part is doing the old school sweet batter corn dogs where you get your fine Joe Weiss kosher hot dog. You put it in a skewer, dip it in, and you put it in. Here you go, kid.
I do miss corn dogs. The corn dogs, if you especially again, shout out to Illinois State Fair. Vaux's corn dogs were always a treat, but that was why I was so damn fat.
There's just a couple laps on the lake.
Is there a defibrillator in your house standing by? Just maybe
You ever see Saturday Night Live?
He's having a heart attack. The coach.
But look, for all of you that haven't been to the tree lighting, again, we have the link up there. Joe Oriti and the team, Rick Amos.
Good job, guys. I know it'll be. I just hope it's not raining or something, but that's the only wild card. The only wild card is the weather, which those guys have obviously no control over unless you believe in climate change.
Bring your peach schnapps.
Should we all burn our styrofoam that morning so we get a little global warming going? No, just a joke. Just a joke.
Global, that's such a sham. Don't get me going. All right, so
I recycle my styrofoam.
All right, so to sum it up, tree lighting, the school, Montgomery is getting paid. Good for him.
Dr. Montgomery.
Dr. Montgomery.
The good doctor.
No, PhD Montgomery.
I'm sure he seems like I've heard from people that interact with him on a personal level, he's a nice guy. I'll take them at that. Like I said, I don't hate the player. I hate the game.
Yeah. So that's my new attitude till something comes up and changes. And I'm sure there'll be a few emails that I'll get after this podcast goes.
Oh, I'm sure. There always are.
But like I said at the beginning of that podcast with those guys, hey, man, we're just sitting around the bar shooting it. This is what people are talking about. That's why we talk about it.
Maybe we should have had them in the bar. Maybe we should have had them at Duffers or the Lantern.
Well, hey, man, the year's not over. Joe Weiss, next to be on the podcast.
Show. Hey, thanks, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Go Scouts. Scouts. Go Forest Scouts.
What would be their new nickname? The Biddlers?
Just keep it Scouts. That way you don't have to worry about this. There's nothing wrong with Scouts. I mean, should the Niles North Vikings change their name because it's offensive to Scandinavians? I mean, how about this? The Miami Hurricanes, University of Miami. What is a hurricane? Hurricanes have killed thousands of people over the years. Is it appropriate to name?
I think it's going to be the Lake Forest One. I think that's our new logo, the One.
What's the Lake Forest College team again? That's
Foresters.
Maybe they'll go with that, Foresters. I shouldn't give them that idea. Now they'll be like, oh, we can do that, and that'll solve the problem. Well, that'll encourage people to take down trees, because that's what foresters do, right? Aren't they the guys that take down the trees?
We will put a poll out that will ask you, should the Lake Forest High School change its
You need to get the animated Richard Dawson, since he's no longer alive, to do surveys.
And then if it's yes, then we'll come up with some options.
Have a referendum. Let's have an advisory referendum on the ballot.
I think whoever can donate the most money to the school, so it'll be the Biddlers, the
Uline,
the Rummels, the Ulines. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. The Lake Forest Podcast is supported by viewers, listeners, and businesses just like you. Looking for the best pool supplies? Look no further than Dohany's Pool Supplies. With a history dating back to 1967, this family-owned business offers everything families need to keep their pools clean and sparkling, from chemicals to equipment. Plus, customers enjoy free shipping on all orders. Visit Dohany's Pool Supplies today at doheny.com, DOHENY.com, to learn more. Forest Bluff Real Estate Team serves Illinois, Wisconsin, Lake Forest, and Lake Bluff. John Josephitis, Laura Lee Van Fleet, and of course Michelle Parnell. Get a free market analysis now at forestbluffrealestate.com. For the best cannabis in the world, look no further than Iliad Epic Grow. Owned by Lake Bluff's own Rich Ruzich, they are a cannabis cultivation center focusing on hard-to-find small batch products that will delight both the occasional user and ganjier. When visiting Michigan, ask for it by name. Epic Products, exceptional process. For more information, email info@iliadgrow.com. Havey Communications has been helping first responders arrive safely since 1983. It's owned by Lake Forest's own Mike Havey. Check them out at haveycommunications.com. Laracy & Company CPAs, founded in 2010 by Lake Forest's own Brian Laracy, specializes in tax preparation and bookkeeping services. Earning the People Love Us on Yelp award, their process is straightforward. Just upload, review, and file. For a free quote, visit LaracyCPA.com now. That's LARISEYCPA.com. We'd also like to say we're thankful for our Patreon supporters, Otto, John C., Helen, and Herrick.